Let me thank all of you for being here. Let me thank the few thousand more people in the spillover room. We appreciate this turnout. Looks to me like South Bend is ready for a political revolution. Looks to me like we're going to win here on Tuesday. And it looks to me like people in South Bend want a government which represents all of us, not just the 1%. Now, just coincidentally, turns out that today marks the anniversary, 1-year anniversary, of when we began this campaign. And my goodness, we have come a long way in a year. When we began this campaign, we had no political organization, no money, no name recognition outside of Vermont. We were running 3% in the polls, 60 points behind Secretary Clinton. We were taking on the entire Democratic establishment. Well, that was then, and today is today. As of today, we have now won 17 caucuses and primaries. And with your help on Tuesday, Indiana will be number 18. When we began, the pundits said, who wants a political revolution? Too radical, too idealistic. Turns out up to now, we've got 9 million votes of people who really want to change this country. We started out 60 points behind Secretary Clinton the last couple of weeks. Several polls have had us ahead or behind by a few points. We have come a long way. And one of the beautiful things that we have done is that we have shown the world that you can run a successful winning campaign without being dependent on Wall Street or the drug companies or billionaires. We do not have a super PAC. We never will have a super PAC. We have received over 7.4 million individual campaign contributions. Averaging, anyone know what that average is? Right. $27. And to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. And one of the aspects of this campaign that I am most proud of is that in virtually all of the elections held so far in the various states, we have won, and often by a large vote, people 45 years of age or younger. And occasionally we get an older voter as well. But what that means, and what I'm really proud of, is that what we are doing is becoming, our ideas are the ideas of America's future, are the ideas of the Democratic Party's future. And we should be very, very proud that the establishment on Wall Street, in corporate America, in the corporate media, they're getting very nervous. That's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing because across this country, people are saying enough is enough. I'm running for president because we live in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, but the vast majority of the people don't know that because almost all of the new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. Now again, you don't see this on TV, and there are reasons for that. But the issues of income and wealth inequality are part of the great moral issues of our time. It is the great economic issue of our time. It is the great political issue of our time. It is an issue that Pope Francis has been talking about since he became Pope. I was privileged enough a couple of weeks ago to go to the Vatican. And I participated in a conference on the need to create a moral economy, an economy that works well for all of our people, not just the rich and the powerful. I'm running for president because over the last 40 years, the great middle class of this country, once the envy of this world, has been disappearing. Today, as all of you know, you got women out, mothers out working 40 hours a week, dads out working 40 hours a week, children working hard, and yet, despite all of that, 58% of all new income goes to the top 1%. I'm running for president because here in Indiana, since 2007, real inflation accounted for median income has gone down by more than $4,700. $4,700 decline in real median income. I'm running for president because not only do we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, but here, right here in Indiana, over 330,000 kids are living in poverty, over 21% of all children in this state. And again, believe me, it is not just Indiana. There are states where these statistics are much worse. But right here in Indiana, some 16,000 public school students were homeless during the 2012-2013 school year. And within the South Bend city limits, 45% of working families are living in poverty or close to poverty. Today in America, the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Today in America, the 20 wealthiest people have more wealth than the bottom half of our society, 150 million Americans. And that is why what this campaign is about is telling the 1%, they are not going to continue to get it all. We're going to create an economy that works for all Americans, not just a few. Now, how do we do that? Well, I'll tell you how. For a start, we make it clear that anybody in America who works 40 hours a week is not going to be living in poverty. We're going to raise the minimum wage. We're going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. Women in this country are not going to continue making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. Together, we are going to fight for pay equity for women workers. And when we talk about women's rights, it is not acceptable to me to see Republicans going all around this country talking about family values. Everybody here has got to understand that what they mean by family values is no woman in this room, in this state, in this country has the right to control her own body. We disagree. What they mean by family values is that our gay brothers and sisters do not have the right to be married. We disagree. I'm running for president because in a highly competitive global economy, we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. And we have got to understand that education and technology and the global economy has changed what public education should mean. When we talk about public education today, it is not good enough to talk about first grade through 12th grade. We need to make public colleges and universities tuition free. I want every kid. I grew up in a family that didn't have any money. My parents didn't go to college. But I want every kid in Indiana, Vermont, and America to understand that if they study hard, if they do well in school, yes, they will be able to get a college education regardless of their income. How many people here are dealing with student debt? All right. Well, we're going to address that issue as well. People should not be punished for doing the right thing and getting a good education. If we could bail out Wall Street, we can help people who have college debts. That is why I believe anyone with a college debt should be able to refinance that debt at the lowest interest rates they can find. And we're going to pay for that through a tax on Wall Street speculation. I'm running for president because we have a corrupt campaign finance system that is undermining American democracy. Democracy is not a complicated concept. One person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. I'm running for president because we must leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for our children and grandchildren. I'm a member of the Senate Committee on the Environment. I've talked to scientists all over the world. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity, and it is already causing severe damage on this planet. We must have the courage to take on the fossil fuel industry and to tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. We are going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. I am running for president because together we're going to end the international disgrace of having more people in jail than any other country on earth. We have a broken criminal justice system, and together we are going to change that. When youth unemployment is 40, 50, 60% in communities throughout this country, we together are going to invest in jobs and education for our kids, not jails and incarceration. We're going to reform local police departments. When a police officer breaks the law, like any other public official, that officer must be held accountable. We are going to end the so-called war on drugs. Over the last 30 years, millions of lives have been seriously hurt because people were arrested for possession of marijuana. Today, under the Federal Controlled Substance Act, marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug right alongside of heroin. That's nuts. We're going to take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. But while we're on the subject of drugs, you all know, because it is a serious problem here in Indiana, a very serious problem in my state, many parts of this country, we are experiencing an epidemic of opiate addiction and heroin addiction. We have got to deal with that problem boldly, and the way to go forward is to recognize that drug abuse and addiction should be treated as a health issue, not a criminal issue. And that means a profound revolution in mental health treatment in America. People should be able to access mental health treatment when they need it, not 6 months from when they need it. I was in Flint, Michigan a number of months ago, and what I saw there was hard to believe was happening in the United States of America in the year 2016. Children being poisoned by lead in the water. But it is not just Flint. There are hundreds of communities around this country that are struggling with clean drinking water. But it's not only water, it is wastewater plants. It is roads, it is bridges. You got 2,000 bridges here in Indiana in need of repair. We got many in the state of Vermont. You got levees and dams and rail systems in need of repair. We have got to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, $1 trillion investment. $1 trillion investment creates 13 million decent paying jobs. Let's put our young people back to work, creating affordable housing, good schools. I was in Indianapolis the other day, and I spoke to a bunch of steel workers and others who were very upset. They were upset that United Technologies was shutting down or threatening to shut down 2 plants here in Indiana, throwing 2,100 workers out on the street and moving to Monterrey, Mexico, where they pay workers $3 an hour. United Technologies is a company that made a profit of more than $7 billion last year. It is a company that could afford to pay its CEO over $14 million in total compensation last year. Now, when we talk about a moral economy, listen to this. This is a company, United Technologies, that gave its outgoing CEO in 2014 a golden parachute, a severance package worth over $172 million. Now, what kind of morality, what kind of sense of decency is there when you throw thousands of people in this state out on the street, but you have enough money to give the former CEO $172 million in a severance package? This is a company that received $6 billion in defense contracts last year. And in my view, they should not receive a nickel more if they continue to behave like this. And United Technologies is just one. That is the corporate greed out there that is destroying the middle class of this country. And what we are saying to them, I got elected president, trust me, that behavior will change. And when we talk about greed and recklessness and illegal behavior, we are talking about the titans of Wall Street. Let us never forget that as a result of their greed and illegal behavior, they drove this economy into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. We bailed them out against my vote, by the way. They were bailed out because the big banks were supposedly too big to fail, and yet 3 out of the 4 large banks today are bigger than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. Well, you know what I think? I think that when you have a handful of banks that have unbelievable economic power, unbelievable political power, I think it is time to break them up. Now, when we think outside of the box, when we begin to look at the real options that are available to us, options that we don't see very often in the media, one of the areas we have got to look at is the issue of health care. And the simple question that we have got to ask ourselves is, how does it happen that in our great country, we are the only major nation on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right? So let me be as clear as I can with all of you. I believe from the deepest, deepest part of my soul that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, young or old, when you get sick, you are entitled to the best quality care this country can provide you. Now, we have made some progress under the Affordable Care Act, some really good progress, but we have longer to go. Today, 29 million Americans have no health insurance. Many of you have high deductibles and high co-payments and cannot afford to go to the doctor when you should go. And all of us are getting ripped off by the outrageous greed of the drug companies who charge us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And that is why I believe we should join the rest of the industrialized world, move toward a Medicare for all single-payer program. And not only will we be able to guarantee health care to all of our people, we could lower the health care costs for middle-class families by thousands of dollars a year. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. There are 11 million people in this country who are undocumented. I believe we have got to move forward toward comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And they are asking, how does it happen that we have trillions of dollars, trillions, to spend on a war in Iraq we never should have gotten into? But somehow, we just don't have enough money to rebuild inner cities in this country. Well, together we are going to change our national priorities. We're not going to accept in inner cities 35% of the children living in poverty or 50% of the kids being unemployed. Instead of rebuilding the infrastructure of Iraq and Afghanistan, we're going to rebuild inner cities in this country. This campaign is listening to people whose pain is never heard, or virtually never heard. That is our brothers and sisters in the Native American community. Anyone who has studied history knows that before we became a country, when the first settlers came here, Native American people were lied to, they were cheated, and treaties they negotiated were broken. We owe the Native American community more than we can ever repay. They taught us among so many other things, that as human beings, we are part of nature. We must coexist with nature. And that if we continue to destroy nature, we are destroying the human species. And yet today, on Indian reservations and Native American communities throughout this country, unemployment rates, poverty rates off the charts, youth suicide horrifically high. If elected president, we will change our relationship to the Native American community. Everybody here understands a very profound political and historical lesson, and that is change never, ever takes place from the top on down. It is always from the bottom on up. "100 years ago, in Indiana, in Vermont, and all over this country, you had workers who were working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. They had no say on the job. They could be fired arbitrarily. Children, 10 years old, 12 years old, were working in factories and working in the fields. But workers said, sorry, we are human beings, not beasts of burden. We will have rights on the job. We will create trade unions and protect our dignity." For hundreds of years, in the worst days of slavery in this country, African Americans and their allies said, our vision for America is a vision not of racism, not of discrimination, not of bigotry, and we will change the way America is. And many of those people whose names we will never know people who fought for racial justice. They were killed, they were jailed, they were beaten, they lost their jobs. We don't even know who they were. But they stood up together and said, we are going to change this country. People forget this. People forget this. 100 years ago today, women in America did not have the right to vote, did not have the right to get the education or jobs they wanted. Less than 100 years ago. But women stood up, fought back, and with their male allies, they said, in America, women will not be second-class citizens. If we were in this room 10 years ago, and somebody were to jump up and say, Bernie, I think that by the year 2015, gay marriage will be legal in 50 states in this country, the person next to them would have said, you are nuts, it can't happen. But as a result of the struggles of the gay community and their straight allies, who stood up against incredible bigotry which exists today, but they stood up and they said that in this country, people should have the right to love each other regardless of their gender. That is how change takes place. Let me give you another example, a more contemporary example, about how change takes place. If we were here in this room 5 years ago, no time at all, somebody jumps up and says, Bernie, federal minimum wage, $7.25 an hour, it's a starvation wage. We have got to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Person next to her would have said, $15 an hour? You're crazy. You're too radical. You're thinking too big. You want to more than double the federal minimum wage. But this is what happened. Workers in the fast food industry, in McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, they went out on strike. They stood up and they fought back. And then, a couple of years ago, in Seattle, $15 an hour. In Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in California, in Oregon, New York State, $15 an hour. And if I have anything to say about it, there will be $15 an hour in every state in this country. Here is the point. It is a simple and truthful historical point. The establishment always wants to tell you that change is not possible, that you have got to accept the homelessness, the hunger, the unemployment, the low wages. Can't be changed. Think small, don't think big. But what I am seeing happening, I've been all over this country from Maine to California, and what I am seeing is people looking around them and they're saying, you know what? This is absurd. We cannot live in a country which has such a grotesque level of income and wealth inequality. We cannot continue to see the middle class of this country decline and almost all new wealth and income go to the top 1%. We cannot continue to have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. We're not going to allow women to continue making 79 cents on the dollar. We're not going to be the only country in the world, major country, not to guarantee health care or paid family and medical leave to our workers. We're not going to continue a trade policy which has cost us millions of decent paying jobs because the United Technologies of the world want to shut down here and move to cheap labor abroad. We are looking at the status quo, and we are concluding that the status quo is not working for the average American. And that is what this campaign is about. Let me repeat to you what I've said a million times since this campaign began. No president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can transform this country in the way we need to alone. The powers that be, the endless supply of Wall Street money, the greed of corporate America, the control of corporate media in terms of what we see and what we hear, the power of wealthy campaign contributors. No president alone can make the changes we need. We need millions of people standing up. Standing up and fighting back and telling the entire world that in this country we are going to have a government that represents all of us, not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors. On Tuesday, here in Indiana, you've got a very, very important Democratic primary. And what I have learned in this campaign so far, after having won 17 states, is that we win when the turnout is high. We lose when the turnout is low. We win when working people and young people and people who have in many cases given up on the political process come back in and say that, yes, they are going to stand up and fight for an economy that works for all of us. So I hope very much that all of you will help make next Tuesday the biggest voter turnout in Indiana Democratic primary history. And I hope very much that Indiana will join states throughout this country in the understanding that we need a political revolution. Thank you all very much.